It's with great pleasure today that I have a very, very close friend, my mentor, my coach, and someone who helped me a lot when I needed and helping me to understand the power of mental health, the power of leaders that care about that. Anni Townend. Anni is an independent leadership consultant. She's a coach. She's a facilitator. She's an entrepreneur, and she's also an author. She wrote books, and one of the books, the first books I read about diversity, about assertiveness, is a book from Annie as well. So on top of all of that, Annie is someone who also understands extremely well the power of diversity and how to deal with diversity in corporate environments. So uh, great to have you with us here, Annie. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, Beto. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And what a lovely introduction, because you're so right. I'm very passionate about helping leaders like you to create a safe environment for everybody, whoever they are, wherever they are, to be able to be open and to feel seen, heard, and understood. And this is what I'm very, very passionate about, in helping people wherever they are.
Fantastic. We have 100 people with us today, Annie, from all over the world, for all over Brazil. And we
Wonderful.
have many topics to talk, but I would like to start telling you guys how I met Annie. A couple of weeks ago, I wrote about mental health, and I spoke about an experience I had with mental health, an episode, a situation I had. So back around 11 years ago, in a lovely, shiny day, I was in a meeting in an advertising agency in central London. I was feeling well, powerful, and as I stand up to take a cup of tea, I simply collapsed. Collapsed on the floor. I could not hear anything that was happening around me. People got concerned, called the paramedics. The paramedics came, checked me. I had no symptom, nothing. Everything was perfect. They took me to the ambulance, all the exams again, everything perfect. I went back. They told me, no, you just go back home. You are perfectly healthy. You can run a marathon. And I went back home. When I arrived at home, I started to feel very insecure. I didn't know what was happening to me. Why did my brain turn off all of a sudden? And then I did an appointment with a doctor for the next day. I went to the doctor. As I was in the waiting room, I had the second episode where I collapsed again. My brain turned off. Then I was able to go back to the emergency in the hospital. They did all the exams. I was perfectly healthy. Went back, spoke to the doctor, and the doctor told me, look, looks like you had a couple of panic attacks. And she, giving a questionnaire, she diagnosed me with anxiety disorder. And with that, gave me some medicine, told me to ask for sick leave from my job, and that simply for me was I never lost a working day in my life. For me, was something that I always felt that I should be there. I should not stop working, and it was very difficult for me to do that. But I contacted my boss. I asked for a couple of days off. The doctor told me minimum a month. I told him a couple of days. They said, okay, take your time, take care of yourself, stay at home, don't worry at all. And then I started a healing journey. During this process, after 10 days, I decided to go back slowly to the office, spending 1 or 2 hours. I was feeling extremely tired after 2 hours in the office. And one common friend, someone who knows Annie as well, which was HR director at that point, he referred me to someone who could help me. He didn't tell me much about the person and just gave me the phone number. and told me that I could trust her, and I should go and see her and don't come back to the office to work before I had a couple of sessions with her. And that's how we met. I went to see Annie, and some details that are very important, and she will explain why. She lives south of London, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Annie?
Yes.
Close to the sea, in a small city, in a small town close to the sea, roughly 120 kilometers away from London, a little bit more from my house at that time. So I need to drive to get there, a bit more than an hour. And and she told me, yes, it's part of the process, is to drive, think, reflect, and arrive at my place. When I arrived there, she lives in an absolutely beautiful country house, and with one of the most beautiful landscapes, and is a destination for people who likes to hike, to walk, and it's a beautiful. And she met me, she greeted me at her kitchen. We sat at the kitchen table, and and then we started our friendship, our relationship, and over the course of a couple of sessions, we started to decide to go for a walk together. So most of our sessions were where we were walking side by side, and then she basically reframed the way I could deal with my feelings. I could deal with what I could find what triggered the anxiety syndrome that I was diagnosed, which was a post-traumatic effect that I had after losing my father-in-law in a very short period of time, and being away from Brazil was very traumatic for me. And with that, I also we expanded from helping me to also help how I change my leadership, how I improve as a person, as a leader. And we had over the years as well, we worked with my teams. And over the year, we also had some partnership talking about this, the importance of leadership in having and creating this environment. So that's where we are today. Annie is one of these persons. Annie was saying in Brazil that when we're very close with someone, if has been a couple of years that you don't meet and you meet, you feel exactly the same way, like you meet the person the day before. That's how I feel today, and having you with me here to have this chat. Thank you so much to have you here, Annie.
Thank you so much, Beto, and thank you to all of you who are hearing our stories of how we met. And just before we became live, we were talking with Daniela about the importance of being well met. And I think that you felt well met by me. And I remember you asking a great question, Berto, which you may or may not remember, at my kitchen table, because you hadn't met me before. We'd had one conversation, and you asked me what differentiates you from maybe other executive coaches that work with individuals and teams. And I remember spontaneously answering, because I work with love and care. And the title of our conversation today is that of self-compassion, purpose, and collaboration. And I felt in that moment that we had well met each other, and that my job was to help you to care for yourself, to be able to talk about the things that you hadn't talked about, that you had not connected within yourself because you were so busy doing. And my job, and through the walking and talking side by side conversations, was to help you get in touch with caring for yourself, but also getting in touch with what you really cared about, your values and your beliefs and what mattered to you, and to help you reconnect after the loss of your father and your father-in-law, and to help you to do that. which was such a privilege.
And any share with us your thinking about love and care in a professional environment, and
Mhm.
how because your answer and how you introduced me to that at that time, especially because I was in a company with a culture that was not about love and care, was about results, was about overachievement, was about this big myth of the superhero. And all of a sudden, I was there sitting with you, and we were talking about love, care, and how do you use this as a very strong leadership power, not only towards others, but also towards
Yes.
yourself. Can you elaborate a bit more about this, about the importance of self-compassion to
Mm.
start this journey of also creating this positive impact on your organization and other people?
Definitely, because this is where we started today about creating a safe environment, which I know that you do and great leaders do, in which people can be themselves and can take care of themselves. I think what happens in the very busy doing, target driven, where we're focusing on all of that, sometimes we lose sight of who we are being. We lose sight of how do we care for ourselves and what does caring for ourselves really mean. And I had to find this, Berto. This was something which I feel passionate about because I too had to learn how to take care of myself as I was growing up, and to feel safe to be able to talk about how I was feeling, my unhappinesses and my happinesses. And I think in leadership and in organizations, our being able to hold both the unhappy and the happy, and to be able to share how we are feeling as well as what we're doing is really important to our mental health, to connect with each other through how we are feeling and being able to talk about how we are, and then move through that so that we can get on to do the work. I think a huge part of caring for ourselves is getting in touch with what our core values are. And I can remember working with you around what you really stood for, what really mattered to you, that you felt your father had shared with you in the ways that you were like him, that you weren't like him, but core values that really mattered to you, that you needed to get in touch with again, to take care of those values. And I think in a team and a corporate organizational setting, that's one part of get taking care of ourselves. The other is finding out what our purpose is, what we, the difference that we want to make, what our contribution is. And I think that that's what you did with me, and the work that we did with teams as part of creating an environment in which people did feel and do feel, with your leadership, seen, heard, and understood. They know they will be listened to, they'll be helped to take care of themselves, to know what they care about, who they are, as well as why they're here, their sense of purpose and direction.
Amazing, Annie. I recall one point, I think was in our second session. You challenged me in a good way. You told me that an observation that you had, that for, and the sessions I think lasted around 3 hours each, correct? So
Yes.
was very intense. And you told me after 6 hours that I had a lot of difficulty. She observed that I didn't use the word I once. So for the first time for many, many years, I realized that I was not able anymore to say how I was feeling.
Mm.
And that was a completely new thing for me. not in a sense. I didn't realize that over time, uh, uh, you forgot, and you just said that
Yeah.
being able to express how you feel is so important, because
Yeah.
that creates the basis for connecting with people. And that's something that I know you do extremely well when you facilitate sessions, when you do the check-ins before, when we start meetings, instead of starting the meeting straight to the point, is really do the check-in and how you are feeling today.
Mhm.
And that's such a powerful question, how you are feeling today. And having the ability to listen to how people are feeling, I found that insight so nurturing to me as a person, but also in building this safe environment. So I just want to reinforce that. I think that's a phenomenal insight for all of us, not only in professional environment, by the way.
Sure.
Yes, in your interactions with your family, your friends, the opportunity we have to express how we are feeling at that particular moment,
Yes.
yeah, is so powerful and do so good to us. And that's something for me that I carry with me, one of the big lessons from our sessions. The other one you just said is people like to be seen, heard, and understood.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a bit more about this? Seen, heard, and understood. And that's for me, just sorry, I'll hand over to you, but it's so important as well in a more diverse environment, correct?
Totally, Berto, absolutely. So this is one of my aspirations, that everybody with whom whoever they are, wherever they are, when I meet them, that they feel seen, heard, and understood. This is an aspiration. This is the impact that I would like to have people feel around me. So one of the things that you have worked with me on, with teams that you have worked with, is helping people to understand the impact and to think about the impact they would like to have on other people. So I think the very first thing is to feel seen, to know that you've been seen. This is why in this virtual world, as I've been working like you and everybody, encouraging people to have their cameras on, to be seen and to let other people see you. The next thing is to be heard, to be really heard and listened to. And I think that's about being present for each other in the way that you and I are with each other now. We're present to each other. And then the third, to be understood. That means that we have to be curious about each other. And I think curiosity is so important. So that if I want to know a little bit more, as you do, about seen, heard, and understood, you ask a question. You feel courageous to ask a question. So one of the questions I often ask people is, how are you? And sometimes I say, how are you really? Because what I'm inviting the person to share with me is how they really are. And I will listen. I will see them. I will hear them. And I will understand. I may not understand everything because I may not have had that experience, but I can empathize that that is their experience. So understanding is about empathizing, and we can empathize at a intellect level. So I empathize with the thinking. We can empathize at a feeling level, where I empathize because I have felt similarly. And then there is the human to human empathy, the experience of being human. So people thinking about how other people feel seen, heard, and understood is so important to collaboration, to inclusive dialogue, to diversity of thought, and bringing that curiosity is so important. So being curious, especially when somebody thinks differently to you or their experience is different. so that they do feel seen, heard, and understood.
Beautiful. And Annie, when we spoke in our sessions, we also you helped me reflect about a third option that was also not in my radar. So I was, and I think most of us here in this live, we are trained. We see people who has two type of responses or reactions: or we fight, or we fly. And I remember that I had this so ingrained in myself about here I should fight, here I should simply fly. And you told me one day that, but Beto, there are other options. And I could not realize what other options I had. and then you expanded to help me enhance my repertoire of how can I respond to events outside of my control. Can you help us here and elaborate a bit more about this?
I think that when we explored the different options, so often when we react to someone or something, we go into flight, we fight, or we freeze. And I remember we spoke about what could be possible if you brought more curiosity and sought to connect in a different way with somebody, with a situation. And I remember we played with the idea of taking one situation and looking at it through what I call a safe lens. So you feeling confident, feeling connected with what you care about, in tune with your purpose, the difference that you want to make, you at your confident best, feeling safe. What would be your response in that situation? And we explored that. And I remember that your response when you feel safe and in touch with what you care about and the difference, your purpose that you want to make, then you want to connect with other people, to befriend other people, to reach out to them, to seek to understand them. When we look at something through the fearful lens, that's when we feel unsafe and we react either by becoming fighting or withdrawing or freezing. So in our conversations, we explored how you could not only yourself, but encourage others to be open to the possibility of connecting with somebody who may have a different point of view, may feel very differently, may have said something to you which hurt or which upset you. And how could you have those conversations and appreciate that maybe they too are struggling with their own feelings of fear, of uncertainty and anxiety. And I think at the moment, the world, our experience that we're having all over the world, we are all more anxious at the moment. And so how we can make it safer and reach out to each other and connect with each other, be that online or in person, when we do, the quality of those conversations really matters.
Yeah, it's amazing. So Annie taught me about
what else do you remember, Beto?
Oh yes, so the be friends
Yes, the
option was something so close to my values, and I neglected this. Also because I was in a different cultural environment, where in some cultural environments, the proximity that we have in Brazil, in Brazil, after 2 minutes, we become great friends with anyone. It's a very close, warm, and especially in Alpargatas that are so proud. We are very warm and close to people. So it's easier to feel befriended. But outside of that type of environment, for me, it was very difficult. And you taught me that don't escape that. That's what you are. So get back to that. And
Yes.
that for me was so powerful
Yeah.
and made me such a stronger leader and a more positive and impact leader. Yes, I remember also we spoke about uh, purpose and how do you design your purpose? How do you find your purpose? I think we spend a lot of kilometers walking, talking about purpose and how do you reconnect or connect
Yeah.
with your purpose. And a lot of people come to me and say, but how do I find my purpose?
Mm.
Is it something that we need to do an exercise, fill a questionnaire, and then you come your purpose written into a sentence? Can you help us, Annie? How do we
Yes.
connect with our purpose?
Well, I do think it goes hand in hand with your values. So there are two questions which I think are really helpful to answer. The first one is, who are you? And that's what you care about, your values and beliefs, what you stand for. So I stand for kindness. That's my number one value. Kindness, curiosity, and courage. So encouraging everybody in our conversation today to think about what do they stand for, and then how can I live those values through, and this takes me to my second question, which is a big question, why I'm here. What is the contribution that I want to make, the difference I want to make? So I think of my two girls. I have two daughters, as you know, and I'm who I am at work and at home. But what do I want them to be proud of in me, the difference that I make? And I know that they both know I go to work with leaders like you and your teams to help you and your teams to create cultures of care and connection in which people feel safe. The same applies to my family. I want my mum, who's very elderly, to feel that she is cared for, that she feels connected with me and with where she is at the end of her life, and that I'm making a contribution to her feeling safe, especially at this time. For months, I would visit her through the window at a time when all I wanted to do was wrap my arms around her. And I have to lean down to wrap my arms around her now because she's so small. And she taught me a lot about anxiety and mental health because she lived with, she struggled with anxiety, but nobody in our family ever spoke about it. And it's only in the last few decades, maybe the last 20 years, that I've been able to support her with that, for her to feel able to talk about her anxiety and for her to know that she's seen, heard, and understood. So my purpose is to help people, wherever they are, whoever they are, to feel safe, to be able to feel a sense of belonging. Community really matters to me. And I think what I would encourage everybody in our conversation today and who listens to our conversation is to think about what you care about, your values and beliefs, and what is the contribution that you want to make, that you can make every day in a small way. It doesn't have to be huge. In a small way, you can bring that to your everyday leading of your life, whether you call yourself a leadership or, whether you're in a leadership role or not, just how you live and lead your life. And this can be so helpful with mental health, because if we're connected with what we care about and our sense of purpose, the difference that we want to make, we can get hold of it at those times when maybe we lose our ground a bit, in the way that you had lost your foothold of what you really cared about and your purpose. So again, being able to articulate it. It's not set in stone. You know, my purpose evolves and grows through conversation, but there is something at the heart of it that has me be so very fortunate to work with people like you, to speak in this conversation today and to share how we can all do that, something which I've learned, and care for ourselves better, taking care of ourselves and each other better.
Values and beliefs. I think that is at the heart of when you find your purpose. And my personal experience with this was exactly that. I could able to find my purpose when I started to connect and act on my values and beliefs on a day-to-day. And like you said, and I believe very much in the concept that this is an everyday exercise. In every small moment that you practice, you find your purpose. So the purpose comes as a consequence of practicing your values and beliefs in every small moment of your life, not in the big moments, but in every small moment. I found this very, very powerful. I'll shift a little bit. One of our cultural principles, Annie, is to grow together.
Yes.
Yes, is collaboration, but collaboration in a way that we grow by collaborating, by sharing. Can you talk all these concepts from individual level? How do we apply on a team, on a collaborative environment? And how, in your experience, teams that love and care, how they do it differently from other type of more transactional teams?
That's a great question. They focus more on the being, on the people in the room, on the people in the conversation, as well as in what they're doing. So they're seeing every interaction as an opportunity to build a relationship. And I think this is so important, Beto, to see every interaction as an opportunity to work with somebody, to work together. We are better together, and to ask for help and to be open to receiving help. So one of the questions teams can ask each other, organizations, how can we help each other more? So if I know, you know, on a person to person what your purpose is, how can I help you realize that purpose? At a team, how can we help each other realize that purpose? At an organizational level, how can we help each other to realize our collective purpose? How can we collaborate together? And this is so important to me. And this is where inclusive dialogue and diversity of thought, of attitude and behavior, I often think it's like an equation. Create the safe environment, have inclusive dialogue, have diversity of thought equals collaboration. And I talk about collaborative edge. Collaborative edge is where I feel safe to make mistakes, where I'm encouraged in my team and by others to take risks, to learn, to grow, to seek different points of view out, and where I feel, and something you, myself and Danielle were saying at the very beginning of this call before we were joined by everybody, is we have each other's back. We're looking out for each other, as well as delivering. And I actually believe that the more collaborative we are, the better the delivery, the better the results. I firmly believe that when people pull together and work together, they can do so much more. And we do that through creating this safe environment in which people can collaborate. It's very hard to collaborate with each other more broadly across the organization if we are suspicious, mistrusting, fearful of others. Whereas if we can have those, what I call courageous conversations, where I maybe ask questions and ask you why you've done something, help me to understand. I think this is so important, to bring that passionate curiosity, to create collaboration.
Yeah, I love the idea of the collaborative edge, and
Yes.
it's phenomenal concept, because sometimes we want to collaborate, we don't know what collaboration means. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we use in our meetings, in our sessions, the help needed. And I
Lovely.
found in the beginning, and it was interesting, people were not asking for help. Now it's becoming more of our culture, and I would encourage everybody here. I think the help needed is what creates
Yes.
a collaborative environment, a safe environment. Everyone should use every opportunity to express the help needed in a very open and in a safe
Yes.
environment. I think that is extremely powerful. And great collaborations start with that, with the help needed. And
Yes.
sometimes help needed, and is showing vulnerability as well, correct?
It is, absolutely. What I call robust vulnerability, being able to share a feeling with others, and nobody needs to do anything with it, but you have heard how I'm feeling. And this is coming right back to where earlier on, where you were saying about the importance of saying I, because I think then we have the I-you conversation, me to you, you to me. And then when we combine all that into this we, this collaborative edge, into working collaboratively and thinking collaboratively, that's where we make the bigger difference, much more widely in our communities and in the world.
Fantastic. Everybody, feel free to post questions. It's from Juliane Cardoso. This week, we have seen what happened with Simone Biles, the
Yes,
US Olympic gold medalist and one of the
yes,
top athletes in the world.
yes,
And we became aware how important is mental health for everybody. Can you
yes.
share your views? Obviously, these are elite athletes and
Mm.
very well trained physically, mentally. How do you sense we as a society are coping with this type of episodes? And how
Yeah.
did it? What did it tell you when you see such a powerful athlete
Yes.
acknowledging and taking a different route rather than trying to fight? She didn't fly as well. She was sitting on the
Mm.
bench, supporting the colleagues, which I found phenomenal. Uh, can you
Amazing.
tell us a bit more? How did you read this situation?
I was very humbled by her taking care of herself. She knew what she needed to do, and she knew when to step aside. And the fact that she then opened up to how she needed to take care of her mental health, I thought was fantastic. And the way in which she has the team around her, and a lot of other sports, women and men, have come out and supported her and talked about the immense pressure that these athletes are under. And indeed, Beto, going right back to the beginning of our conversation, uh, where you started by saying, you were at that time yourself under immense pressure, but were not paying attention to your mental health at the time. It took you by surprise. I think what is great about Simone and other athletes who have, you know, stopped and said, I need to look after myself, is that they are practicing self-compassion and they are supported by their teams and by all of us. This is what I thought.
Fantastic, phenomenal. Any amazing chat. Great to see you again. And I
Really
want to
lovely.
I want to formalize an invitation as soon as we can travel. We would like to invite you to come to Brazil and know Alpargatas and our people. It will be a pleasure to host you here.
Thank you, Beto. Thank you to everyone. I look forward to that day very, very much. And thank you to all of you. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us today.
Ciao, ciao. Go well.